What's going on, y'all? It's your boy GK, and it's been a minute. So, what I want to do is I want to catch you guys up. You know, I think it's been about 2 years since I've been on here. At least 1 year, but maybe definitely 2. And there has been some changes, a lot of changes. So I want to catch you guys up just so we can bridge the gap, and then we can just keep moving forward, because I think I'm ready to, I think I got something to say. I think I got some stuff that I want to say again, you know, so I'm going to kind of pick up where I left off. But first, let's bridge the gap. So I think the last time that I was on here, right, I was, I think, just getting done with closing down the studio, still managing the Airbnbs and things like that, just trying to get things in order, because the studio, you know, the whole studio era, that was my life, you know, that was my identity since about 2009, but I would say professionally since about 2015. So from 2015 to 2023, that was my whole identity. Everything, my entire life was built around the studio, the music, you know, things like that. So when everything eventually came to a head in, you know, August of 2023, it was almost like an identity crisis for me, because it's like, well, this is all I know. And, you know, of course I had the Airbnbs and things like that, and I still do, even though I'll get to that soon, because I'm definitely probably gonna also get out of those as well. But if I make it to that in this video, if not, you know, that's cool. If not, I'll definitely make a separate video for that. But I want the purpose of this video to be just to catch up, right? So once I kind of got out of the studio thing, I was faced with the challenge of trying to figure out what do I want to do? You know what I'm saying? What direction do I want to go in? And it was rough. It was rough, to say the least, you know, because it's like now I'm back to square one. And, you know, for you to feel like you've built so much just to end back up at square one, it was like, whatever I do moving forward, I want it to be something that can last longer than the studio, because I thought the studio was going to be forever. I thought the studio was going to be, you know, my thing that takes me to the grave, but apparently it wasn't. And so it's like now trying to make a smarter decision. I really didn't have a clue. I really didn't have a plan. I'd had to just figure out something from scratch. And I knew I had business experience. I knew I had marketing experience. I had studio engineering experience. Pretty much a lot of business technical skills I had already. But the one skill that I did not have, in my opinion, at least from a stump down, bootstrap perspective, was sales. And so, you know, my first direction was like, hey, you know, well, if I am going to start over, I would rather start over in a skill that, you know, I hadn't fully conquered consciously yet. So I did a few jobs, you know, the first of which was I sold cell phones at Sam's Club. Man, let me tell you, if you've ever went into a Sam's Club or a Costco and you've seen those people that sell the phones, brutal. brutal, brutal, brutal. Not to mention that the whole company was a scam in the first place, and they preyed on desperate people like myself at that time, which was like I was just looking for something. It's something to grasp onto, something to belong to. Man, one of the worst jobs. If you could if you could even consider it a job, because they paid you like $13 an hour plus commission, right? So, but your commission is based on how many phones you sell at Sam's Club. And let's be honest, who just goes to Sam's Club looking to buy a phone from a random guy, right, that's saying hi to everybody? Like, you gotta say hi to everybody even though they cussing you out, they running away from you, they doing all this stuff. It's not really, it's a scam, it's slavery, it's slave labor. You know what I mean? And you're there for 7 hours. And I think you get, what, a 15-minute, no, like a 30-minute lunch or something like that. You get like a 30-minute lunch. And you can't go nowhere, because by the time you go far enough, you got to come back, you know, and you got to clock these hours. And if you don't clock these hours in a certain specific way, you lose money. So it was real bad. It was real bad. I hated it. But I did do it for like 2, maybe 3 months, right? So that was kind of my intro into sales. Selling phones at Sam's Club. Highly not recommended, because on top of, like, you know, it being a total scam and you having to stand there for 7, 8 hours at a time, not even mentioning the hour or 2 you have to start at the office. So you're really spending like 11 hours or so, like almost 10 hours, you know, 10 hours or so, not at home, like just to make what, 500 every 2 weeks. That shit, it was bad. So after that, I ended up quitting that. And then I moved to I ended up working at getting a job around January 2024, working at a doctor's office for seniors. And that actually was a pretty okay job, you know, considering the fact that the position that I had, which was sales, they called it outreach, was designed for you to fail, right? Because it's like and the reason I say that is because shortly after I got fired, so I got fired from that job, but shortly after I got fired, everybody got fired. It's like, it's literally designed for you to be like a disposable foot soldier. But while you're there, the upside, which was better than Sam's Club, which is why I would rather had been a foot soldier for this place, was because they paid you substantially handsome. They paid you handsomely, very, very handsomely. When I came on, they gave me a $2,000 sign-on bonus, plus they gave me, I think, around like $42,000 a year, which, you know, starting your life over, that's a good place to start. You know what I'm saying? It's a good for a full-time job, you know, benefits, the whole thing. $2,000 sign-on bonus, and each month you get not only a commission, but you get a bonus check on top of the commission based on what the office does, what the clinic does, not what you do. You get a separate bonus check for what you do, but you also get a bonus check on top of that for what the clinic does. So they were just throwing the money out. So it's like I couldn't even be mad at them until they fired me, you know. And the way that they fired me was so bogus. I had a funeral for one of my cousins, older guy, but it's a funeral. And I remember actually thinking that the funeral was on a Saturday, and this day was a Friday, and my mom calling me like, "Hey, are you coming to the funeral?" And I'm like, "What? I thought it was tomorrow." And she's like, "No, it's today, and we're at the funeral right now." So I started scrambling. I went to my boss whose office was next door, and I said, hey, you know what, we have an emergency. You know, I got a funeral going on right now. I gotta go catch this. And it was my lunch break. I told her, like, hey, if I can take my lunch break, I'll use my lunch break, go to the funeral, pay my condolences, and I'll come back. Like, I was fully prepared to go to a funeral, never see my family member again, and still make it back to come back to work, right? And so before she of course she let me go, but before I left, she was like, yeah, just let me know if you need some extra time and stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I don't need extra time. I'll be back, you know. And lo and behold, when I come back, she brings me in her office for a meeting and essentially tells me this is my last day and I'm essentially fired after today, so get all my stuff and things like that. And I'm in awe, like I'm in shock, like I can't believe not the fact that I'm getting fired, but the fact that you knew I was going to a funeral and I told you that I would use my lunch break, and you didn't tell me this, knowing that I was going to a funeral and knowing that I could have stayed there, right? Like, I could have stayed there with my family. I could have went to the repast. I could have did all these things that I did not get to do. And you let me come back to hear this. You could have fired me as the next day or as soon as I came back or whatever. You could have even fired me before I left and said, hey, well, you know what? Don't even worry about coming back, yada, yada, yada. Like, that was pretty messed up to me. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I worked at Sam's Club. Then I went from like August to December. January to May, I worked at this doctor's office for seniors. And then May, I got fired. And pretty much from May until about, I'm gonna be honest with you, May until now, like, right? Like, it's been a struggle. So this is April. It is just now about to be May 1st, 2025. And so from May 2024 to May 2025, it has been brutal, right? But it has been brutal in a light at the end of the tunnel type of way, right? Because, mind you, I'm still in this rebuilding stage. I'm still in this trying to figure out what I want to do and how I want to do it and what I want the next part of my life to look like and things like that. But so what I will say is this: while I was working there, I met a guy who sold Medicare insurance. He was around my age. Name actually sounds similar to my name, but he was selling Medicare insurance, and he was, you know, I was so like ingrained into trying to learn how to sell these people, which, by the way, like, trying to convince somebody 65 years and older who has been going to their, wherever they go to, doctor's office, advocate, or whatever the case, to switch to a just newly formed, not the best service or whatever, holistically speaking. It was convenient, but trying to switch somebody who's used to going to their same hospital, seeing their same doctor, going to their same clinic, their same facilities for X amount of years, to all of a sudden up and switch doctor's offices, one of the hardest things you can do. You know what I mean? You know, but at that time, the money was so good that I was dedicated to getting results, you know what I mean? And, you know, but it was a guy there, he sold Medicare insurance. Now, we weren't allowed to do anything insurance related while I was there. But this guy was adamant that, hey, what they're teaching you right now with their sales program is basically how to crawl, how to walk. You know what I mean? But when you're ready to actually make some real money, essentially what he told me, when you're actually ready to make some real money, work for yourself, not have to do all of this stuff that they got you jumping through hoops on, and move on your own time, come see me. And at that time, I was just like, yeah, you know what? I am not trying to hear that right now. I got this job. I don't know what you're talking about and stuff like that. But once they fired me, I didn't have anything to lose. I called them and I told them, like, hey man, you know what? I think I'm gonna go ahead and get my insurance licenses. And so I would say around August or so, between June and August, I think I was preparing. I was in the process of getting those licenses. So I went and got my health license, my health insurance license, my life insurance license, my property and casualty license as well. Property, casualty, life, and health. Yep, got those licenses. You know, took the tests. They weren't even that hard. I personally liked it because it didn't require me to know any math or anything. I suck at math. Like, you know, like that's one thing I am not scared to admit. I suck at math. But I got my insurance licenses. And once I got my insurance licenses, I started working with this guy doing Medicare with my health license, and then I took my property, my casualty, and my life to another major insurance company, and I started working there and selling insurance. So now I'm moving towards an insurance salesman route, and you know, it seems to fit the direction because it's like, you know, I told myself, like I said, like, okay, well, if I'm starting over, I want something that can take me past 20 years, you know, where I can still be making money off of this 20 plus years in the future. But the caveat that I wanted this time around, because mind you, I had the studio, Airbnbs, all these things like kind of require me to a certain extent to be stationary. Like I could leave, I could take a vacation or whatever, but the brick and mortar aspect of it, I have to always come back. I have to always be back, feet on the ground. And so I wanted something to where I could make money from my laptop. I can make good money from my laptop and not necessarily have to be stationary in Chicago. And so when I decided to get my insurance license, it checked all those boxes. That's what gave me the motivation to go ahead and do this stuff, right? Now, in between all of this stuff, I'm still doing odd jobs, moving jobs, you know, like mounting TVs, whatever. And honestly, you know, I still do that stuff, you know what I mean? Side money aside, all money, you know, I'm taking it as long as my skills can bring it, you know? But I was really scrambling during this time, man, because during the time that from May until the time I started working for the insurance, doing the insurance to slowly pick myself back up, it was rough, man. I'm talking about one of the lowest lows of my entire life. I'm talking about going from up north, right by Wrigley Stadium, few blocks from Wrigley Stadium. Not Wrigley. Is it Wrigley? Wherever the Cubs play, you know what I mean? I'm not a baseball guy, but man, in the midst of it, right there, building all this stuff over the last 8 years to now not having a dollar in my pocket, to where I remember I had took like my mortgage money for my house, and I was walking around with it. I took it out of my bank account and put it in my shoe and was walking around with it in my shoe because I could not risk any monies being taken out of it. And I think actually I think actually what happened was a storm had came, knocked my chimney off. I have no money, so I had to use that mortgage money to actually pay for something. I don't know. Oh no, that's what it was. That's what it was. My car, my truck that you had seen in the previous videos, which I don't have. Well, I have it, but it's down, it's dead, it's in heaven, but it's still sitting in the front. Something happened with my radiator. I think I had to replace my radiator. Yes, I had to replace my radiator, and I didn't have any money, but I had to make a decision on, hey, well, if I take this mortgage money and pay for this expensive radiator for my truck, I may be able to get back in motion long enough to do some moving jobs, enough moving jobs to make that money back, and then pay my mortgage. Like I was on some whole robbing Peter to pay Paul times 12, right? So it was rough. They wouldn't have even given me a bag of chips on credit. And mind you, I didn't make this $1,200. I had a tenant living in my property. So I took the mortgage money from that, paid for my car, and had to figure out a way to make that mortgage money back before anything happened, any notice or any information got back to the tenant to say, hey, you gotta go. You know what I'm saying? So it was rough, and it was really worse than that. But I'm just giving you guys the overview because I think this might have to go into like a few different videos just to fathom really what it was that I really was going through at that time. I think I might have to make some separate videos on that. But yeah, so nonetheless, man, I'm going through it. I'm really down and out. I really am thinking into myself like, wow, like this is my life. Like everything that I have worked for has essentially, you know, came down to this. And I was ashamed, to be honest with you, because I didn't know. Like I had to really, you know how they say walk by faith and not by sight? I had to walk by faith at that time because the sight, I had nothing in sight. You know, I was basically destitute, man. I had to, you know, come August, I got all those licenses, and I finally, you know, start working with these guys doing all these insurances, which by the way isn't guaranteed, but I knew that it was at least a drop in the bucket, because if I could just figure out a way to manage while I built this, I'd be straight. Like I'd be straight eventually. But you know, I got the opportunity, but right now it's like at that time I still gotta find a way to pay the bills. And so fast forward from August to now, you know, I simply have just been living on making ends meet on insurance, you know, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been, you know, but one thing I can say is that it gives you it puts out what you put in. So there were months where I made nothing. There was months that I made 1,000. There were months that I made 500. There were months that I made 2,500. And it's like you kind of see the possibilities where it's like, okay, like this is cool. I can do this. But I need something that can also consistently pay my bills while I am getting this together, you know. So August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, which is now, surviving off of insurance, trying to make ends meet, doing odd jobs and things like that, you know what I mean, getting into credit card debt, you know, like credit card debt, man. That credit card debt carried me through, man. Robbing Peter to pay Paul on the credit cards, man. But between insurance and credit cards, I managed to make it from August to April, which is now, and we're at the end of April now. And like 2 weeks ago, I just got a part-time job, you know, that will allow me to consistently pay my bills, right? Because I have strategically lowered. One thing I did do now, One thing I did do in preparation for whatever was to come back then, I made sure I lowered my expenses to under $1,500 a month. I think I might be at like 12 or 13. So let's just say 1,500 or less, right? Like, I made sure I strategically kept my expenses below $1,500 a month, so that whatever happens, I should be able to make enough money from somewhere to pay my expenses. So, you know, and imagine having $1,500 or less in expenses and still struggling to pay these bills, right? Like, man, it was not easy. It still is not easy. But about 2 weeks ago, I would say, maybe a week ago even, well, let's just say 2, I picked up a part-time job, you know, regular NPC part-time job, stocking shelves, you know, whatever. But now, with the 20 hours or so that I'll be working every week, 20 hours or so every week, I will now have enough money to pay that my monthly expenses. So now I'm just now at, I would say, the foundational, pivotal building point where I am able to pay my bills, right, consistently, using that part-time job, and I'm able to use my insurance money as savings to now start to pull myself out of the debt, all of the credit card debt that I have, because my credit score is tied strictly to my credit card debt. So once I come out of that, I'm good. But I think I owe like $10,000 in credit card debt, to be honest with you. So it's like, it's gonna take some time, but at least we're at the foundational, pivotal starting point now, right? And then all these other odd jobs and things that I do can also be savings. So honestly, today, as I sit here in front of you, I am at the foundation. I have a solid foundation. But when I tell you, I really had to thug it out. I had to thug it out. And so this is going to be what I'm more so in talking about these days, because I didn't even get into the Airbnbs. I didn't get into any of these other things. But so I guess I will be saving this for another video. But yeah, man, I am just now 2 years later after I closed the studio, and 1 year after I had my last job and was making consistent money, I am now finally getting back on my feet, right? I don't have a car because the car died. You know, I got a house, but I'm renting it out. You know, I still have the 3 Airbnbs, but they won't last long. And I'm just trying to figure out the direction that I want to take this in, because right now all I can focus on is really just climbing out of this debt hole. And so I'm going to be really just speaking to you guys a lot about the reality of, you know, where my life is right now. Kind of doing these daily vlogs just to reflect on my life, the life and times, you know. I'm not trying to position myself. I don't want to position myself as a guru. I don't want to position myself as somebody who got it figured out. I want to position myself as somebody who is trying to struggle my way out, you know, who is trying to thug my way out of the struggle, should I say. And I want to be transparent with that with you guys, so that you can see, and that you can see like that there's hope. And I know my situation is not going to be everybody's situation, because some people have full-time jobs. Everybody's savings plan is not going to look like mine. Budgeting plan is not going to look like mine. But I want to share these things with you guys just so you can kind of see my perspective, and maybe it'll even give you guys some ideas on how to kind of thug it out with your own things, man. So they over there doing the construction, but luckily I said everything that I needed to say. So for this video and to the next video, I'll catch you in the next one, I guess. Peace.